Round two. Sorry, this got a little lengthy, but I'm doing your assignment for you today so you can just hang with me through it, right? I believe that you can do it. So I'm going to spin you around and we're going to answer, or I'm going to model for you what I'm looking for on the effects column. And I'm also going to go ahead and do the devices as well, even though I expect your devices to be not necessarily my exact ones. Like I hope that you have tried the devices portion before you just randomly and brainlessly copy mine. Okay? All right, let me spin you. I always try to spin it wrong. Hello. Okay, so there's our notes. We went through all this 10 minutes ago. So now we're talking about Walt Whitman's I Hear America Singing. So I have my text here, and I'm actually going to, so I know that I gave you a link to this. I'm actually going to use a highlighter, but before I use a highlighter, here's the problem that I have with highlighters. People don't know how to use a highlighter appropriately, right? I might use it a little bit through here, but I would much rather you, rather than reading with a highlighter in your hand, I would much rather you read with a pencil or a pen because I want us to be active readers. So this is what we're going to be doing today is called a close reading / a poetry analysis. Now, I have good news, especially if you are not an emotional person. I'm not an emotional person. I don't normally read poetry and I'm like, oh, well, someone said the word blue, so that means they must be, sad, right? Like that's not the kind of analysis or interpretation we're looking at. We are looking at something called rhetorical strategies. Well, let's say rhetorical choices. Let's call them that. And all the rhetorical choice is how an author puts together words in a way that is most effective for their audience. Okay, so if I'm looking at the bottom of this paper from yesterday / today, whatever day you're looking at it, and I see repetition, parallelism, and symbolism, these are 3 types of rhetorical choices. And there are so many more. Can you read that? Okay. There are so many more. Think similes, metaphors, think hyperbole, personification, think tone, mood, diction, right? All of these are different types and styles of rhetorical devices and rhetorical choices. Don't get too caught up in that. Like, don't let these scary words that you maybe have never used before freak you out, because I know for a fact that you've used the word repetition before, you've seen the word parallelism before, and you've seen the word symbolism before. But if you haven't, we're going to define them. Okay? So, repetition. Repetition is it's something repeated. Okay? You know this. I know this. It's a good time. So if I'm looking at my text, I can see lots of things are repeated. We have the repetition of the people, right? The woodcutter song, the singing of the mother, the young fellows. So we've got mechanics, carpenters, masons, boatmen, shoemakers, and woodcutters. Now that's the example that I'm going to use. There are more examples. I would say this is the easiest one. Okay. You could also look at the a repetition of, let's see. I don't know. There are other examples here. Let's just stick with one, or else I'll get carried away, and this will be another 10 whole minute video. So what you might say is you might write this differently. Now this is going to be a lesson in writing that we're just going to skip on. Okay. So I would say mechanics .. Mason .. Boatman .. And I'm going to put all of that in quotations. Okay. Let me zoom out this so you can see. Okay. And then I would open my parentheses and I'm going to count the line numbers that was in. So I used mechanics, that's line 2, carpenter in line 3, and mason, that's line 4. Oh, you can't see, sorry. Mechanics in line 2, carpenter in line 3, and mason on line 4. So what I'm going to say right here is 2 through 4. I'm going to close my parentheses and put a period. Okay. Ta-da! Now, let's talk about the effect, right? The effect of the repetition here. And it's not necessarily just repetition as in like we're saying mechanic 3 times over, but it's the slot holder here. So let's identify the slot. These are all, it's a repetition of lists of occupations, right? So repeated blue collar occupations. All right. P.S. I know this is not neat, so give me some grace on that. Okay, now, if I am Walt Whitman, that's on purpose. Okay, if you look up here, a question you answered yesterday, make inferences. Why do you think Whitman does not mention wealthy entrepreneurs, prominent leaders, or powerful politicians? Well, there's a reason. Okay, there's a reason. Think about who we said that he was. He was someone who lived on the south side of Brooklyn. He shined shoes for a living. He sold newspapers for a living. He was a street vendor. Okay, he was offering a skill or a product that he received minimum money for. Okay, so he was in this group of people. This is representative of who he was, who he saw America to be. That America is these people. It's not the fancy folks up in Washington, right? It's not the fancy folks downtown who own XYZ businesses. Like, those things are important, but it's the hardworking people. I was going to say hardworking man, but I caught myself because I don't want to be sexist. It's the hardworking people who make up America, is what he's trying to say here. So I think this effect would be that Whitman utilizes the repetition of blue collar professions ignore that. In order to, this is the important phrase. Okay, that's the $1 million phrase right here, because this is saying what he did, right? This is a summary. He repeated. There was repetition in order to do something. Okay, in order to engage a working class audience. Maybe instead of gauge, we could say value would be another word. Because I haven't practiced this. Like, this is fresh information. Maybe we could say to honor. Oh, that would be a good one. Okay, now when someone feels honored, what do? Right? They stand up a little straighter. They put their shoulders back. They feel worthy of something. So this is his purpose. He's wanting someone to feel honored, because then once you compliment someone, they're going to listen, right? So he wants to gain their ear. He wants to be able to kind of hook them. Okay. Let me tell you, people weren't writing poetry about mechanics in the 1800s. That wasn't a thing. Okay. And this is also another, I know I have not focused on this. This is a huge transition point from romanticism to realism. So romanticism is everything is so nice, and look at the beautiful rolling hills, right? Look at the arches in Utah and out west, and let's go find gold, and like 90s country songs kind of stuff. Well, this is 90s country songs kind of stuff. This is the nitty gritty. This is the real life. This is what people experienced. Okay? So, parallelism. Well, if I'm looking at my poem, I can see that over and over and over again, we have as he does something. As he does something, right? So there's an action as he measures, as he makes, as he sits. Okay? So there's repetition there. And here's another legitimate repetition. We have singing. Okay? Now, let's talk about the difference between repetition and parallelism. Repetition is going to be one word or phrase repeated over and over again. Parallelism is a group of words. Can't see my hands. Doesn't matter. It's a group of words. Okay? One word or phrase. Okay? Parallelism is consistent structure. Of a sentence / phrase. Okay, so this is the structure. This is not the specific words. Okay, so if I'm looking here, there is a structure. He calls out, or he acknowledges, addresses the different people, and then he has a verb, what they're doing, singing, and then they're singing what they do. Okay, so there's some consistency there. You could pull any one of these that you wanted to put right here in the example. When something is parallel, it's pleasant. There's a pleasant vibe or feel to it. Same thing with repetition. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to try to find one example of parallelism, and I want you to tell me what the effect is on the reader, what the audience, how the audience is changed by the use of parallelism. Okay? I would also say that parallelism is a huge deal when you're talking about syntax in when you're vocalizing something, when you're reading a document, when you're giving a speech, because parallelism helps the brain organize things, so you can actually hear more stuff when you have repetition and parallelism. All right. So if you say here, people would have been able to memorize this pretty easily because of those two things. All right. And the last one, symbolism. What is symbolic here? Symbolic. So symbol is something that stands for something larger, right? It's representative. It's representative of something else, something larger. Okay? All right, so there's something representative, I'll go ahead and tell you, about this singing here, right? They're not actually singing. Like they might be. The boatman legitimately might be like humming a song. Okay, he might be whistling, but their work is their song. Okay, so I could just say singing and put that in quotes. And I could say, like, let's choose line 6 for kicks. Okay? Yes, you don't really have to put a period if you're just using one word. So then the effect of this device, it's symbolic. So the singing represents, I should have capitalized that. The work that everyday men and women did, period. Their combined songs, quote, quote, contributed to the overall chorus of America. Okay? All right, now, what's the effect of that? Again, we see where people are going to feel valued, they're going to feel important, they're going to feel like they've received some sort of admiration. And anytime you can do that, you will have you can convince people of a lot of things when you compliment them. Okay? All right, so people would feel complimented and valuable. Therefore, what? Therefore, being easily persuaded, oh, I've got it, to unite as Americans. Ta-da! Okay? Because there's one thing, I was reading an article the other day, and it said that there was one thing that Whitman and Abraham Lincoln had in common. First of all, Whitman adored Abraham Lincoln. He wrote poetry about him, of Captain My Captain, which we're not going to read, but he thought a lot of Abraham Lincoln. Okay? So they had a major theme or goal of their lives in common, and that was to unite the American people. So Abraham Lincoln tried to do it through politics, but Whitman attempted to do it through art. Okay? So I want you to try the parallelism one. Make an attempt. Do your best. Try to use an in order to phrase. Okay? Think about what would happen if you were the audience and you're listening to this. How would it make you feel? What would that feeling do for the speaker? Okay? All right. Thank you for being patient. Go do your best.